97 years ago, a nuclear war destroyed all life on Earth. Fortunately, some people managed to take refuge on the space station. There were 12 stations from different countries in total. Eventually, people joined forces and created an ark out of the stations. It is said that the Earth will become habitable again only in 100 years, for more generations in space, and humanity will return back to Earth. It's just a dream. The reality is much harsher. On the Ark, all violators are sentenced to death. Everyone under the age of 18 is kept in the upper sector. Clark is one of them. The local government decided to select 100 people from the upper sector to descend to Earth. The guard shoots Clark with sleeping pills. When she woke up, she was already on the shuttle. To her surprise, Wells is sitting next to her. He is the Chancellor's son. He broke the law in order to be together with Clark, because they had been friends since childhood. The Chancellor warns that they do not know what awaits them on Earth. If the chances of survival were high, they would have sent other people. And criminals are worthless. The landing site was not chosen by chance. There was a military base inside Mount Weather before the last mountain. Its reserves should be enough for 300 people to live for 2 years. After a while, the shuttle lands. To their surprise, when the door was opened, normal air leaked into the shuttle. And everything seemed normal. Clark is wasting time and is already exploring the way to get to the bunker. The problem is that they were supposed to land in a completely different place. On the Ark, the indicators of the prisoners are carefully monitored. They can use them to understand how much radiation is on the surface. People have already divided into groups there. Not everyone wants to go to the mountain. The squad will consist of 5 people: Clark, Finn, Jasper, Monty and Octavia. After walking part of the way, Clark wonders why they didn't see any animals. Maybe each of them has already received a large dose of radiation. Her theory is partially confirmed because they found a mutated animal. Bellamy begins to convince people to take off their bracelets, so that scientists will decide that they are dead and there is no need to descend to Earth. Clark tells her friends that her father has found a flaw in the Ark. He wanted to make it public, but everyone was against it because of the possible panic, and then he was executed. Now, in order for the Ark to live, they need to reduce the number of people on board. That's why they lowered the prisoners to the ground. Octavia came up with the idea to swim. This is exactly what the local predator expected. But thanks to well-coordinated work, they managed to save the girl. At the same time, they noticed on the Ark that the Chancellor was injured. Clark's mother, Abigail, had to spend additional doses of medication to stabilize his condition, for which she was arrested. After all, the law clearly defines the doses per person. Without exception, Kay sentences her to death. Before she dies, she asks Jackson to reconfigure the bracelets. They can clearly be used for communication. Fortunately, the Chancellor appears and frees Abigail. The next day, Jasper manages to cross the river, where he is immediately nailed. The squad has to return to the camp and tell them what happened to them, due to the fact that they have already taken off 24 bracelets. The Chancellor does not know what to do. At this rate, in 4 months, the entire Ark will die out. You will have to choose those who must die in order to give others a chance to survive. Abigail is sure that everything is fine with the expedition, and the fact that the bracelets go out doesn't mean anything. Jasper's rescue squad is gathering at the camp. Bellamy brought a gun with him, so it will be their main fighting power. A little later, they find Jasper's blood and belongings. Abigail begins to realize that people on Earth have started to take off their bracelets. That is why the sensors indicate that they are dead. Most of the interrupted signals came from the most dangerous criminals. The Chancellor does not believe that his son was able to break the rules. Even so, there are few guesses, because they have only 4 months left. The council begins voting on getting rid of half of the station's population. The votes were equally divided. The decision remains with the Chancellor. After considering everything, he decides to abstain from voting. According to the rules, voting will continue in 10 days. Kale clearly doesn't like it. The rescue team finally finds Jasper. Someone treated the wounds, thus saving his life. Clark wants to take it off, which is why she almost falls into the trap. A predator runs out of the bushes. Bellamy tries to find the gun, but Wells has already stolen it. A few accurate shots and they come out victorious. However, there are no more bullets. Abigail studied Raven's file. She is the youngest space mechanic in history. She must know that the station is dying. She will have 9 days to prepare the boat for departure. Raven is ready to help, but only if she is also allowed to come down to Earth. Her boyfriend went there. A new day comes. The Trinity comes to the river. There are red algae growing here. They can be used as medicine. Their reasoning is interrupted by a rumble coming from afar. Just a couple of seconds later, a huge yellow tornado rises from the forest. They were very lucky. There was an old car nearby that you could hide in. It remains to close all the cracks and wait out the storm. Not everyone is so lucky. The atom was affected by the storm, receiving catastrophic radiation. In the late afternoon, Jasper comes to his senses, all thanks to the red algae. At the same time, Charlotte, whose parents were killed by the Chancellor, decided to take revenge by eliminating his son. After Wells' funeral, Clark takes off the bracelet and notices Abigail in this way, which scares her very much. In reality, Monty took off the bracelet, and he even managed to keep it functional. He plans to make a transmitter and request help from the Ark. In front of the gate, they find Wells' fingers and a knife made from the hull of the ship. Obviously, it wasn't an Earthling who killed him, but one of them. Bellamy wants to keep it a secret. This story about the Earthlings is good for them. Without a threat, they won't build walls. Clark has other plans to find out who owns the knife, and since it has initials on it, it shouldn't be difficult. Murphy is surprised that his missing knife has been found. Obviously, he denies everything, but it is impossible to deny such evidence. Other people want to execute him. The girl has to admit that she eliminated Wells, and Murphy is released. Clark realizes that Charlotte is still a child and did not understand what she was doing, which is why she was helping to escape from the camp. But that doesn't mean she's been forgiven. Finn takes her to the bunker he found while walking in the woods. There were a lot of products inside that had gone bad 90 years ago. Charlotte didn't stay in the bunker. She waited for the couple to fall asleep and ran away. Fortunately, she is found by Bellamy. He tried to take her away from the camp, but the path is blocked by a cliff, and they're being overtaken. Charlotte apologizes for what she did and jumps down. At the same time, Raven repaired the capsule on the Ark, but their plan to leave together was disrupted. Kay began to guess that Abigail was up to something. She had to distract him, giving Raven the opportunity to fly to Earth. Abigail is placed in prison, but due to the faster oxygen reduction, she is allowed to return to work. The oxygen supply in the prison is being lowered by 50%, as the council has approved a plan to reduce the population. 320 people will be disconnected from the system. Miraculously, Raven landed next to the prisoners. Bellamy was the first to come to Shuyupka. He hears that Abigail is trying to contact Raven. For the place of the answer, he rips out the radio and throws it into the river. It turns out that Finn, Raven's boyfriend, saw that the radio was missing and thinks it fell off during the landing. But Clark knows that Bellamy was ahead of them here. Raven reports that he shot the Chancellor. That's why he made people take off their bracelets so that everyone would think they were dead and wouldn't want to look for him. Abigail didn't want half the people to die and informs them of the council's plan. Surprisingly, people didn't mind. On the contrary, they began to volunteer. An hour later, the population of the Ark was halved, which was a big mistake because the prisoners, along with Raven, built a kind of fireworks from the remains of the capsule and launched it into the sky, which Abigail and the Chancellor saw. Late at night, Bellamy notices her sister's disappearance. An Earthling caught her and took her to his cave. Armed with horns, she examines the cave and finds a small gap. After disassembling a couple of rocks, Octavia crawls through a crevice leading to the surface. The search party spent the whole night trying to find her. Eventually trapped, their numbers begin to fall. There are many earthly people everywhere. I have to run. Because of the panic, one of the guys does not notice the fishing line go into the other world. Octavia is also caught, and she watches as her comrades are killed. The same thing would have happened to the rest of the band if it hadn't been for the bullying. They thought that a storm would appear, but nothing happened. But they saw the man who caught Octavia. Following him, they find the girl. Instead of leaving here, they're thinking about what to do to the Earthlings. During this time, he woke up and injured Finn. The squad knocks out the Earthling and takes Finn to the camp. Raven manages to fix the radio. She even contacts the Ark. Now everyone knows that the prisoners are alive. The Chancellor tries to call his son, but Clark says that he is no longer alive. While Finn is undergoing surgery, the others are interrogating the Earthman. There's a notebook in his bag. There are many sketches in it, including a portrait of Octavia and their camp with dashes. There are exactly 10 crosses here. That's how many people have died since landing. And even though the operation was successful, Fino is still getting worse. Clark realizes that there was poison on the blade. There were a couple of vials in the bag. It would be foolish to carry poison with you without having an antidote. Octavia injures herself, forcing the man to show the colobus of the antidote. When everyone has left, He says thank you and gives his name as Lincoln. Things are much worse on the Ark. The Chancellor decides to tell them that they have only 700 lifeboats, and the population of the Ark is 300. Winter will start very soon. K names a place where you can find a warehouse. It will have all the resources for survival, but not everyone uses the connection for good. Chamuet's guard orders the murder of the former. As a reward, the boy's mother will fly to Earth in the first shuttle. It was impossible to refuse such an offer. Having arrived at the coordinates, the couple sees one ruin, but the bunker was able to survive a nuclear explosion. They even managed to find a box of weapons inside. It was soaked in oil, which is why it retained its appearance. Suddenly, each of them had strong hallucinations. Even the people in the camp began to behave strangely. Octavia seized the moment and freed Lincoln. He says that when nuts spoil, they cause a vision. Before leaving, Lincoln kisses Octavia. The effect of the nuts was short-lived. Thanks to this, the couple manages to fight off the killer. Towards nightfall, people notice the loss of an Earthling. Their panic is interrupted by Abulami, showing a bunch of weapons. The Chancellor holds no grudge against Abulami. He forgives him for the attack and wants to find out who exactly gave him the gun. That's how Samuel gets taken into custody. In reality, he was just a pawn of Diana's advisor. She doesn't need people who can ruin her plan. That's why Samuel is being eliminated. A new day is coming. The day of the Ark's creation is celebrated on the Ark. The celebration is interrupted by an explosion. Kay's mother was among the victims, as were all the advisors. If the Chancellor hadn't reduced his speech, he would have died too. It was clearly an assassination attempt. Abigail noticed that Counselor Diana had left shortly before the explosion. She and her people figure out how they need to escape. It takes time to fix the shuttle. We will have to cause a malfunction on the Ark, increasing the number of victims. Finn looked up for Octavia and was surprised that an Earthman spoke their language. If we can communicate, Finn warns that in 2 days other people will come down here. We need to form an alliance as soon as possible, otherwise they will all be killed. It is unlikely that Earth people will be able to do anything against their weapons. Lincoln asks to bring their leader, and he will call his own. Upon returning to the camp, Finn tells Clark about future negotiations. On the Ark, Kay goes to interrogate the engineer, not knowing that it is a trap, and now he can't get out of the cell. The electricity goes out in most parts of the Ark. This does not allow you to maintain a normal temperature. There is no electricity in the prison either. Thanks to this, the Chancellor went to check on Kay. They realize that Diana is trying to distract them and take off on a shuttle. There are 2 minutes left before the launch. So lucky for Diana, Abigail was in their compartment. They just needed a medic, and the rebels are flying away. Anya came to negotiate with the Earthlings. It turns out that when their shuttle landed, a detached rocket burned down their village. The Earthlings took it as an attack, and then they kidnapped their man. According to the rules, they had to come to the negotiations without weapons. Bellamy, Raven, and Jasper decide to break it and secretly go after the squad. They weren't the only ones who did it. There are Earthlings sitting in the trees. They are given the signal to kill Clark. Jasper runs out of the woods, opening fire. The archers die immediately. If it hadn't been for Lincoln, one of the arrows would have hit Octavia. Towards nightfall, the prisoners saw the shuttle, but he was moving too fast. And as soon as the shuttle disappeared behind the mountains, an explosion occurred. The prisoners go to inspect the shuttle, where absolutely everyone died. Raven wants to find the black box and find out the cause of the disaster. Murphy came to the camp late at night. The Earthlings caught him and tortured him, but he managed to escape. Clark's eyes are bleeding tomorrow. The same thing happened to the others. The Earthlings used Murphy as a weapon. We need to quarantine everyone who has had any contact with Murphy. Surprisingly, even though Octavia touched Murphy, she looks normal. Lincoln knew about the Earthlings' plan. There is no cure for this disease, but it will not kill absolutely everyone. So they will lose the fight, which will start in 12 hours. Because Lincoln helped Octavia, he is now considered a traitor. He's going to have to leave, and he wants Octavia to come with him. She promises to go with him, but before that she needs to warn everyone. Rocket fuel is perfect for a future battle. Earthlings had obviously never seen such an explosion, but Octavia changed her mind about leaving. She can't leave her brother. The attack of the Earth people begins. Thanks to the plan with the bomb on the suit, it is possible to detonate it and repel the attack. After some time, most of the inhabitants manage to recover from the disease. But the Earthlings do not want to let them go, launching another attack, knocking out Finn and Clark. This time, they want Clark to cure their man, and then Monty won't be killed. She was caught by the shock wave from the explosion. The operation has failed, and the Earthlings are taking Finn away. Left alone with the soldier, Clark eliminates him and escapes. However, she quickly falls into another trap. Things are no better on the Ark. The station is on the verge of destruction. Kay is trying to find engineers to improve the situation. They fix the radio and contact the Chancellor. He gives the order to find as many survivors as possible and take them to the canteen. They'll send most of the oxygen there. According to estimates, there are no more than 1,000 people left. The database shows that before the launch of the shuttle, someone locked himself in the intermediate compartment. After checking the compartment, they find Abigail. The Earth people sent Tristan to kill all the guests. Clark was supposed to be the first, but the man who was supposed to kill her took her away from the camp. Behind the mask was Lincoln. To get the clothes, he had to kill one of his own. Lincoln knows a place where they won't be searched, but they'll have to go into the tunnels to do it. Anya wants to run after them, but Tristan orders her to stop. The dungeon is too dangerous, as there are Reapers living there. Lincoln will try to distract them, and the couple must return to the camp before dawn. There is a map in his book leading to the moon settlement. She would help them. Meanwhile, Murphy kills everyone who wanted to hang him. Jasper notices this, forcing Murphy to take him hostage. Bellamy offers to let Jasper go, and he will become his hostage. Murphy agrees. Bellamy takes Jasper's place. Murphy hadn't considered that Raven could sneak into the electronics bay and open the gate. He has to run to the top floor, where the bomb components were so well placed, with which he breaks through the body and escapes. While watching a family video, the Chancellor gets an idea. The Ark is one big ship because it has engines installed to support the orbit. Theoretically, 95% of the Ark will collapse during landing. We need to find a rescue 5%. After analyzing the schematics, the engineer presses detach, but nothing happens. The detonators are faulty. Someone will have to run them manually. Kate doesn't hesitate to take on this role. How did the detonators suddenly activate? The Chancellor beat Kate to it, sending the Ark back to Earth. During the descent, part of the living quarters fails, but still the rest manage to fly into the Earth's atmosphere. The couple gets to the camp. Clark talks about the future attack of the Earthlings. Everyone has to pack their bags and leave. But it was not destined to go far. The Earthlings were already here. People are returning to the camp and preparing for defense. Arrows and mines slow down the progress of the Earthlings. The problem is that the bullets are not endless. And Tristan has caught Murphy and is listening to their conversations on the radio. A new wave of attacks begins, and Finn comes up with another plan. There are women living in the tunnels, so why not set them on Earthlings? Destroying two enemies at once. One of the arrows landed in Octavia's leg. Lincoln knows a doctor who can help her, which is why Bellamy lets her take her sister. The Earthlings break into the camp. The prisoners have to retreat to the shuttle. Anya manages to jump inside, which saved her life because it was part of the plan. By connecting the wires, the engine is activated, destroying everyone who was outside. A new day is coming. The prisoners exit the shuttle and immediately fall into a trap, but this time in armed men, dressed in U.S. Army clothes from before the war. When Clark opened her eyes, she was already lying in a white room with surveillance cameras everywhere. But more on that next season. Write in the comments if you want to see the sequel. We will also be glad to receive your like. We'll be back very soon.